Hey guys, it's Will. It's Hong Kong Cinema Appreciation Society. Welcome back to the channel. If you are new to the channel, welcome and thank you for finding us. If you are not subscribed and you feel like it would be much appreciated. Obviously, only subscribe if you like the content, if you like Blu-rays, if you like old school martial arts films, if you like Wong Fei-hung, everything else I'm talking about in this video, Blu-ray labels, boutique Blu-rays, and all that other fun stuff, it would be much, much appreciated. Drop us a comment. Let me know what you think about this film. I know this is a movie that a lot of people really, really love, that are really excited. It's come out on Blu-ray now. The movie I am talking about today is Skyhawk. It is 1974. I freaking loved this movie. I had never seen this movie before, and I genuinely loved it. I just finished watching it, so it's fresh in my mind. I'm really excited to talk about it. It's coming out from Eureka Entertainment in a limited edition Blu-ray that has a slipcase and an essay by James Oliver that is limited to 2,000 copies, so rush out now and make sure you pick that up if you want to have that essay and be able to get the extra context of the writing in there and stuff like that in the slipcase, which is like the color scheme and the artwork on the slipcase is kind of in keeping with other old school martial arts films that Eureka has been releasing over the past couple of years, like Shaolin Plot and all that kind of stuff, Odd Couple, those movies. So they look really nice together on the shelf. This movie was directed by, I should tell you the initial theatrical run too, which I wrote down here, January 22nd to February 5th of 1974. It was directed by Cheng Chang-ho, who directed King Boxer. So if you watch this channel regularly, if you've seen my lists of Shaw Brothers movies, or if you saw my reappreciation of King Boxer when I watched in the Shawscope set, I think that was last year. That's like a top 3 Shaw Brothers movie for me. I freaking loved it. I loved that movie. The narrative complexity of it, the emotional complexity of it, Lo Lei's kind of against type performance as the hero. So many things about that movie that I love. And this movie, in its narrative structure and its emotional and narrative complexity, really reminded me of King Boxer. The other movie it reminded me of is The Big Boss. So I'm going to get through like the basic information about this film and then I'll get into my thoughts, but I just wanted to put that out there. It was written by Yip Yat Fong and Ka Ha Rim, and it stars Kwan Tok Hing, as Wong Fei-hung. So this is the OG Wong Fei-hung. Like, this is the dude in all those iconic, amazing, extremely influential, very important black and white Wong Fei-hung films from like the 50s. And I don't know if they were making them in the 40s, but maybe. I mean, I would, based on his age, they could have been, and like into the 60s and stuff like that. They were really kind of the foundation of martial arts cinema in Hong Kong, and here he is playing Wong Fei-hung again in 1974. Sammo Hung is in this film. He has a very prominent role as the kind of disciple of Wong Fei-hung. He's great in this movie. He was also the action choreographer for this film, so there's amazing fight scenes like from the beginning to the end of this film. Like, this film knows that you are going to see a martial arts film because you want to see fighting, you want to see awesome fighting, you want to see a diverse, group of like styles and locations and like one-on-one fighting, group-on-group fighting, 2-on-5 fighting, like brawls, weapons, like everything you could think of is in this movie, and it's all freaking awesome. Nora Mu is in this film. Chow Sung, he plays the villain in King Boxer, and he's a really freaking good villain. I'm going to talk about him when I get into my thoughts on the film. Carter Huang is in this film. Huang In-shik, who you recognize because he's in Dragon Lord and he's in The Young Master, and he plays kind of the same character in this movie, so it's really fun. Lee Kwan is in this film, who was in more than 200 movies. You could go check him out on Hong Kong Movie Database. And then you will also see Mars and Lam Ching Ying. They're in uncredited roles. In the beginning of the film, there's this scene that doesn't really have anything to do with the plot. I'll describe the plot of the movie to you. Might as well, since we're on that. So Wong Fei-hung and the Sammo Hung character have traveled to Thailand. The movie takes place in Thailand. The architecture in this movie is freaking exquisite and beautiful and incredible. The locations are amazing. I am a junkie for like East Asian architecture, and in particular temple architecture. I know I've talked about that before on this channel. I think I've mentioned I used to at one point, I think I still have it somewhere like in a closet. I have like a coffee table book of Japanese Buddhist temple architecture. I love East Asian temple architecture and Southeast Asian temple architecture, and even like stuff from India. Like, I was an art history major in college, and I took classes on like Buddhist architecture, Chinese architecture, Japanese architecture, and I studied like the temples in India and like the fractal design of them and how that plays into like Hinduism. And like, I'm just such a geek about, you know, like the way these buildings were constructed, why they were constructed the way they were, how it relates to the religion and to the culture and to the history and all these things. And just the temples and the locations in this movie are incredible. So Wong Fei-hung and his disciple go to Thailand, and in this town in Thailand, there's a mill, right? So you have all these workers this is where it kind of reminds me of The Big Boss. You have all these workers in a mill, and there's like labor disputes, and the guy who runs the mill is this horrible person, and he also runs a casino, and then you find out he's sex trafficking women and he's selling opium. He's like a horrible villain, right? And then he hires this kind of nefarious, long-haired, big-bearded martial arts master to help him because Wong Fei-hung has rolled into town, and he's like, oh, that guy's badass. I need a badass. Then you have the Carter Wong character who had a dispute with the mysterious, nefarious, evil, long-bearded, long-haired martial arts master. So he gets the crap beaten out of them by them, and Wong Fei-hung and Sammo Hung find him and kind of rehabilitate them and stuff. But I mean, I talked about narrative complexity with this movie. This is really only scratching the surface of what this film is about. So let me tell you the rest of the stuff about the release. But when I said Lam Ching-ying and Mars are in it, when Wong Fei-hung first rolls into Thailand, he gets like attacked by this band of like robbers, and Lam Ching-ying and Mars are like in the band of robbers. So you'll recognize them, and that'll be really cool. So like I said, there's the limited edition of 2000 with the slipcase and the essay. This is releasing on August 21st of 2023. There are 2 commentaries on here, one from Frank Jank, one from Mike and Arna. You must listen to those. They're both really, really fun, especially in the finals. I don't want to ruin what happens in the final scene. There's this really interesting filmmaking thing that happens in the final scene. I might actually do a separate video about that for my new channel that I'm starting, where I'm focusing more on like small details rather than these big broad reviews of films and Blu-rays. But you get some interesting insight from Frank about like what's going on in that scene and stuff like that. Then you get a Blade Poe interview. Now this was conducted by Frank. This is 20 minutes long, and Blade Poe is a film critic who was the research director at the Hong Kong Film Archive and has written books on Hong Kong cinema, and his specialty is martial arts film studies. This is a really awesome interview about this movie. I really highly recommend that you check this out. And if you're interested in like the history of martial arts films and the evolution of these films, and you know, someone who was the research director of the Hong Kong film, like this guy knows his shit. Like, really great interview, and I highly recommend checking that out. So let me give you my thoughts. Like I said, narrative complexity. This movie is almost like, it almost makes me think of like a play and like a Shakespeare play. There's so many characters, and there are so many groups of characters, and every character has a desire. And so even within the groups of characters, you get these factions where people are kind of at odds with one another, even though as a collective they are at odds with another group of characters. And there's these shifting allegiances where people move from group to group, and the desires and motivation of every single character pivots the story. This is one of the most purely character-driven films I've seen in quite a while, and I love character-driven films, which you'll know if you watch this channel. Like Wild Search, the Ringo Lam film, is one of my favorite Hong Kong movies, one of my favorite Hong Kong bloodshed movies. One of the reasons I love that movie so much is it is a pure character drama within a world of crime. This movie is a pure character drama, I would say almost borderline tragedy, that takes place in a world where there's a lot of violence and nefarious stuff happening and a lot of crime. So you have the main villain, and he's got like this group of thugs, right? So that's one group of characters. He is fighting with this guy who has these laborers working in this mill, because he's like trying to take over the mill and bring his own guys into the mill to work there and put all these people out of work. So you have like this labor dispute conflict, and that aspect of it really reminds me of The Big Boss, where you have like labor disputes and people trying to take people's jobs, and like these thugs working for this really evil rich guy in Thailand, right? It really reminds me of The Big Boss. So you have that whole thing going on. Now, the good labor leader, who's not this evil guy, he is, I think, the brother or the cousin or something of Wong Fei-hung, and that's why Wong Fei-hung has come to Thailand to visit him, right? And the brother has a daughter who is good friends with the Sammo Hung character and becomes friends with the Carter Wong character because they're about the same age, right? Sammo Hung's character has a sister who owns a restaurant, and the evil guy eats at the restaurant a lot. Now, this is where it gets even more complicated. The brother-in-law of the Sammo Hung character, so his sister's wife, is a gambling addict, and the casino is owned by the bad guy. So he's in all this debt to the bad guy. The bad guy's trying to take away the restaurant because of the debt. Then you have, so as part of the labor dispute, the bad guy offers a bunch of money to two labor leaders and is like, if you guys go to your laborers and you convince them to allow us to come in, to take over the mill, to have our laborers working there alongside you guys, I'll give you enough money to set you up for the rest of your life. One of these characters, I don't want to spoil the context of this, but in order to talk about the plot, I do need to mention that one of these guys kind of takes this bad guy up on this offer. So then you have that character, right, who's loyal really to the good labor leader guy, but in order to preserve his life, basically has to work for the bad guy. So you have so much conflict just in that one character. And the brother-in-law, the gambling addict character, these are what would be such intensely peripheral characters in other films that we might not even know their names. In this movie, their motivations and their desires lead them to take actions that legitimately pivot the plot of the film. Characters die unexpectedly because of decisions that other characters make. Like this, the plot of this film is so unpredictable. And the pure character-driven nature of it means that you don't have this kind of classic thing that you would get in a lot of Hollywood movies, but you will also see in some Hong Kong films, Japanese films, Korean films, stuff like that, which is the A to B plot. The character needs to achieve this goal, so they have to go from A to B to do that. This is not a movie like that. This is not a single protagonist film where one person is trying to achieve a goal. This is this maze of all of these characters with all of their own desires, all trying to achieve different things within these very complicated group dynamics. Characters that you might not expect to die do end up dying. Allegiances shift. There are a lot of twists and turns. So much happens in this film. And in a way, this kind of film is very hard to do really well because you have to sustain tension for the audience to care. Things constantly have to be developing and changing for the audience to be invested in and involved with the ride that all of these characters are taking in this really complex chess game of this narrative. And this movie does that really, really well. And it does it in a lot of really intelligent ways. It does it through constantly shifting allegiances and conflicts. It does it through violence. It does it through fight scenes. It does it through, like I said, these peripheral characters making these sudden choices where you're like, no, don't do that. And then they go and do it, and it creates this tension and this, I've talked a lot about on this channel about hope and fear, and this is like a screenwriting theory stuff of you want your audience to vacillate between these extremes of hope and fear. You hope that something will happen, you fear something else will happen, and you're caught in the middle until you eventually realize what is going to happen. And then that creates a new situation of hope and fear, and it creates a lot of tension and engagement for the audience, and this film does that masterfully. Like, it is freaking fantastic. And the complexity of the narrative, the complexity of the characters, and the emotional complexity of the material in the film really does remind me of King Boxer, which, like I said, is one of my absolute favorite old school martial arts movies, one of my top 3 favorite Shaw Brothers movies. It's a freaking fantastic film. I say top 3 because I really have like 3 favorite Shaw Brothers movies now, and I can't really pick which one is my favorite. So they're all kind of my top 3. The music in this movie is fantastic and does a really good job of highlighting the emotional content of the film. At one point, I swear to God, there's a Pink Floyd song. I don't know how they would have cleared the rights to it, or they, to paid a bunch of money. Like, it sounds like it's a different tempo, or maybe it's like a slightly different key, so the pitch is up. But like, I don't know if they like heard the Pink Floyd song and they're like, we want that, but obviously we're not going to use the Pink Floyd song, so let's just play the exact same thing, but like in a studio on a synthesizer. I don't know how they ended up doing it, but I swear to God, there's one scene where there's like 60 seconds of music that works so well emotionally in the film that it's either Pink Floyd or it's some kind of interpolation of Pink Floyd. Really amazing fights in this. Like I said, I really can't emphasize enough how amazing the film just looks in Thailand with the locations. I talked about the twist. The villains in this movie are so freaking evil. They have so much power. That's one of the things that makes them incredible villains, is that even though Wong Fei-hung and his 2 disciples are better martial artists, they don't have the numbers, they don't have the weapons, and they don't have the economic and political power in this town that the bad guys have. So they constantly run into these situations where they're kind of helpless to do anything, even though you know they can and they really want to. And that gives this kind of sense of impotence to their journey and their desire to be righteous and good people. And you even have this incredible moment where the Carter Wong character questions Wong Fei-hung, which you really don't see a lot in these old school martial arts movies, of the younger character questioning the Sifu and being like, are you really this guy you claim to be? Are you really this legend of martial arts? Are you this amazing righteous guy? Like, are you going to freaking do anything about this stuff? Whereas the Wong Fei-hung character, you can see, is playing the long game. He's playing the mental game. He's playing chess with these people, and his disciples want to play checkers with them, and that creates tension between them in this really fascinating way. I'm just looking at my notes, and I think that pretty much covers everything. I highly recommend this film. I loved the crap out of this movie. It's so well made. This remaster looks freaking incredible. Incredible locations, amazing fights. There's nothing not to like about this film if you are a fan of old school martial arts films. It's also only 86 minutes. So if you're new to Hong Kong cinema, if you're new to old school martial arts movies, if you've never seen a Wong Fei-hung movie or anything like that, and you're just interested in checking this kind of stuff out, it's actually a really good place to start because it's a short movie, but it's really, really, really good. So my name is Will. It's Hong Kong Cinema Appreciation Society. We're talking about the 1974 film, The Skyhawk, coming out on Blu-ray for Region B, I should add, August 21st of 2023 from Eureka Entertainment. My name is Will. It's Hong Kong Cinema Appreciation Society. We'll see you next time.